Salam sejahtera, apa khabar? Welcome back to Podcast Lagenda Zelda. How are you guys doing? We're having a lot of fun here, of course. Untuk episode kali ini, for this episode specifically, we have a new guest, a new panel guest. So Alex, how's it going, Alex?
It's doing okay. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. So a bit of I'm having a bit of a quick flu kind of thing. For some reason, I caught it without any real reason out of it. So like, I got I was sneezing pretty bad, uh, like a couple of hours ago, and I thought, is this something wrong? Did I catch a cold or something like that? But apparently no, I don't think. But so yeah, hopefully I'm gonna be good during the session. But yeah, uh, yeah, I'm good. Thank you. I'm good. Thank you. So yeah, just want to talk a bit about you, Alex. So I've got to know that you are involved in a lot of journalism kind of stuff. So maybe you can share a bit of detail.
Sure. I did journalism for undergrad. After that, the pandemic happened, so
Ah,
I did a bit of freelancing. My first sort of big break is I ended up working for Gamer Braves,
okay. Give me a break.
local Malaysian
Yep.
news website for a couple years. Recently, I
Ah.
ended that job this summer, and after that, and now I'm currently doing a master's in journalism
All
to do
right. All
more of
right.
it, I suppose.
Cool.
When I was at Gamer Braves, I sort of became the Nintendo guy
Mm.
and the RPG guy and the movie guy. There was a lot of niches that my strange love of niche genres
All
just
right.
filled out, basically.
Cool. Cool. So are you excited for the Final Fantasy Rebirth that is coming out? I think end of this month.
Oh, very,
Oh
very. I
my
mean, I'm
God. Yeah.
currently playing. If we're talking RPGs, I'm currently playing Persona 3 right now, and I'll be getting around to Rebirth definitely when
That's
that comes
amazing.
out
Yeah,
as
I'm
well.
personally I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy as well, and Seven is definitely one of my favorite in the list. Yeah, I've been very excited about that. I think last year I was really into Tears of the Kingdom because it was the biggest hype, and I really loved the game. I mean, of course, I was a bit prejudiced before the game got released because I mean we were talking about a game that we're getting a lot of uh, hits just because they're using the same world kind of stuff, right? But then again, when the game got released, especially after the final trailer, I don't know whether you recall that final trailer, Zelda punya trailer, yang the last one though, yang that blew me away, and then I was so excited. I got my collector's edition for that, and yeah, I enjoyed the game so much. Really, yeah. And then this year, of course, Final Fantasy Seven. So I'm so excited for that. Of course, I've being old enough, I've played the original version as well. So I was a bit surprised with the changes that they did for the remake. But yeah, so far, Square Enix being Square Enix, so we'll see how they delivers on the new chapter for Final Fantasy Seven. Yeah, definitely. All right. Yeah. Uh,
Reese,
yeah. I think. Yeah. You this. All right. Okay. Now I'm getting you back. Yep. Sure.
um, Reese,
Mm.
you've sort of frozen up. I can't hear what.
Okay. All right. Sure. Let me just. Froze up on my side here, so let me just quickly check whether. How's it now? Is it better? Is it better?
Reese, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I think you're. I can only.
Um,
Let me just see.
so
Mm.
you sort of cut off for me for a minute there. You were a bit frozen.
You are still you still.
It's still a little bit choppy.
All right. Let me just see. Let me just see if there's anything that.
Okay.
How's it now?
That's good. Um, it's sort of a bit better now, but your sound is kind of coming in and out, and yeah, the video's a bit choppy.
I don't know whether this one is a Discord kind of issue or maybe because my connection is pretty good. And you from my side, you are, yeah, you're being a bit. Uh, uh,
Yeah, now the sound's out again.
okay, let me just see what's going on with this. Just a minute, yeah.
It could be.
Can I just
Um, it might be we might end up. It might be better if we turn the video off if you're willing to do that. Otherwise, Zoom is an option, or
Yeah, you're right. Let me
okay,
just. How's it now? Is it better?
it's mostly just the sound. To be honest with you,
Okay.
you yeah.
Let me just see. Well, uh, just a minute. Let me just try to reconnect us all over again and then see how does it work.
Sure.
How's it now? Because I've switched off my video here. So anyway, I was just telling that I'm so excited for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I think we're gonna get the demo in a bit, and like
I think it's
is it?
on actually, but I think so. I haven't played it yet, but
Well, they released a demo like 2 weeks ago, but that was like the first half of it. They're gonna release another part of it tonight, if I'm not mistaken. So something like that. So they split it up into two. One is related to the story kind of stuff, and the other one is a more like an open world kind of thing. So yeah. So yeah. Really excited for that. But of course, we are here today to discuss about where does Zelda goes next, right? Of course, everyone is excited for Switch Pro or Switch 2 or whatever they're gonna call it. Do you have any input on what they're gonna call the name?
I mean, it's completely up in the air right now. Ultimately, everything so far has just been rumors. People are just calling it the Switch 2 because what
Yeah,
we've heard from sort of leaks and stuff is that it will basically be a Switch but more powerful.
yeah.
In terms of names, I really don't know what they can call it. On one hand, after the whole Wii U
Oh
debacle,
yeah.
where no one knew the Wii U was its own thing, and they thought it was just
Correct.
like a Wii
Extension.
accessory or
Yeah, something.
something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe they don't want to call it like the Switch something again. They might call it something else.
Something.
But then again, they had Game Boy and then Game Boy Advance, so
Correct.
maybe that might work in their favor. If it's just kind of the Switch but more powerful.
Correct.
I
Yeah,
don't know. At this point, I feel like they should just announce it properly already. Like it seems like it's happening, and most people are ready for it, so they should just get around to that, I guess.
agree. I mean, in general, the idea is that they've been doing so well. Switch has been doing pretty good. Well, not well. That's an understatement. So they've been really well after
Yeah,
whatever happened with Wii U. They managed to do a big giant turnaround, and then of course they're competing with the big guns here, right? I mean, talking about this PS5 and Xbox Series kind of stuff, and basically this year sounds gonna be like a very uh, Xbox here, because I don't know, we've seen the news popping around where Xbox gonna be releasing a bunch of good games coming in from their I think showcase kind of stuff, and Sony is
mhm.
gonna be a bit of more back to the discussion on trying to make sure that they can deliver from the first party kind of game. But if we don't see Switch 2 this year, I'm just worried that the momentum will be lost. We've heard the rumors that it's gonna be popping out next year instead, and that's like gonna be
Yeah.
yeah. But I think in that regard, right? I believe a game should be one of the main criteria that would support the launch for new console. And whatever happened with Switch back then, right, was Breath of the Wild. So when that happened back then, it basically carried the idea of a new console pretty well. And how was the reception back then, right? I mean, maybe you got some
Yeah.
yeah some experience that you want to share with that.
Well, from my perspective, it's almost feels like a miracle how the Switch entered, because if you don't know, so the Switch launched
Mm.
around spring 2017, like April, I think. With the year before that, with the Wii U, was considered pretty terrible year for
Yeah,
Nintendo all around. There was they weren't really releasing anything.
Mm.
I think all they really had was Breath of the Wild was coming out, and they had Pokemon at the end of the year, and
Yep.
that was about it. They came to E3 with just Breath of the Wild and Pokemon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Granted, both were great games, but they were still new, so everyone's like, "Well, Nintendo must be doing pretty terribly if they're only showing two
Two games.
games."
Yep, 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 yep.
So, so you know, so everyone kind of saw the Switch, and people thought it's just the Wii U again. It's
Mm-hmm.
coming out with like one game. It's not what's it gonna do that's new. And so when it actually hit, and Breath of the Wild was that good. And of course, Nintendo announced a bunch of other things by then.
Yeah.
Mario Odyssey was around.
Mm.
Blade was around. But yeah, when it came out and Breath of the Wild was that good, it just left a great impression on people. People entered the Switch's life very positive about the
Betul, betul,
console,
betul.
and
Exactly.
it showed. And I think it's important, especially because Breath of the Wild, it felt big, like not just it had an open world, of course, but
Mm.
Nintendo rarely tried open world games. It was very different from previous Zelda games. It was, to an extent, it was very cinematic, like a
Mm.
lot of other big games nowadays. So
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
it kind of made the statement. It made this statement that Nintendo was modern. Nintendo understood how to make a big game, and that this is what you can expect from the Switch, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, they'll definitely describe the same kind of scenario that happened as well during my experience with it. Yeah, to some extent, I'm not sure whether this is a rumor or what, but if you recall, there was a like a thing that happened where the game outsold the console for some reason. So someone bought the game. I mean, for some reason, it's
I guess it was
yeah.
on Wii U as well. I
Well,
guess.
well, no, well, putting that aside as well. So they were pretty surprised to see the Switch sale for Breath of the Wild somehow was more than the console itself, and that people were like, What's going on with this?" Right? But then I think that gives you the idea that that change that Nintendo applied to a very big franchise was really received well, received pretty. I mean, everyone was surprised to see Nintendo being a very old school kind of company to do those kind of big changes, right? Those radical kind of changes, but it worked. It worked well, and I think the sales result really proved that. I think both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom sales has basically uh, took over Zelda series as a whole from since I think was it uh, Link Between Worlds until Link Between Worlds something like that. So the idea is that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom sales was even bigger than the whole Zelda kind of franchise all this while, and that
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So like, I mean, Zelda was always a fairly big seller, but Breath of the Wild was unprecedented. I mean,
correct.
it was on a bit of a slope with Skyward Sword, and I think Breath of the Wild doubled that. And
Mm,
from what I remember, the big one was Japan. Zelda was very in decline in Japan,
correct.
and for several reasons, I guess Breath of the Wild sold incredibly well there. It sort of revives the series
Mm,
there to an extent.
you're right. You're right. Yeah. So okay. So going back to the point of discussion, right, I think we want to talk about what kita nak cakap is because we want to see we're really expecting to see a new Switch coming in, but then we're not been hearing anything news about Zelda because we just got Tears of the Kingdom pretty recent, and then we wanted to just get some understanding. What do we expect to see? What do you want Nintendo to deliver on the next Zelda? This is definitely going to be based on what can be improved from Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom kind of route as well. But then
Yeah.
again, uh, you would expect this to be because if you recall right back then, so Zelda has always been using this template of like I think since Ocarina of Time, maybe even Link to the Past. So they will be using this pretty standard template, and then they were using that again and again until it was Skyward Sword or something like that, and then they can start to see the decline. I mean, as we mentioned, maybe
Mm.
Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker had a bit of issue in terms of the deliverables because I think it wasn't what a lot of fan expected, right? But then Twilight Princess came in, and then Skyward Sword. But then you will see the trend of the interest of the sales kind of time going down because it's basically the same kind of formula. I mean, we have to admit that they were using the same kind of template. Okay, you're gonna be a hero to explore this dungeon and then do all the puzzles and get the items, and the item will be I think it's pretty linear kind of route they did, right. So when they changed to Breath of the Wild, that was the biggest leap that happened, right? So it's not gonna be something that's linear anymore. It's open. So and then they were using this kind of, if you can see that there is a template that happens between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom where you would get all the tools as soon as possible, right? And then it's up to you to explore that. So with the discussion that we're gonna go with is, what do you expect to see from the next Zelda? I mean, let's talk about the 3D one first. The 2D ones are definitely something that worth to explore as well. But let's start with 3D. What do you want to see happen in the next reiteration of the series?
Well, I think for the next one, first of all, I think we're probably not gonna get it for a few years. Breath of the Wild
No.
just came out, but and it's the unfortunate reality that games nowadays take probably a good 3 or 4, some
Correct.
longer years to release. So we're probably not going to see it at Switch 2's launch. Maybe within, I would even say possibly like halfway through its life, maybe in the later half. Like,
Mm.
I don't know. I don't want to be too pessimistic, but that's just kind of, I think, being a bit real. In terms of the content, I think that to an extent it needs to diverge a bit from what Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom did. Like I think it's still going to be open world. They made it very clear they
Clear.
want to keep things open world.
That
The
caused
main thing,
that caused a lot
yeah,
of noise within the fan base. But yeah, sure. Yep, definitely.
yeah, it's true. I mean, Eiji Aonuma just comes
Yeah.
out and says that they want to keep doing
Yeah,
that, so
exactly.
that's fine. But they're probably gonna need to change up the map. Like, they really did wonders with that Hyrule map, and I think they did enough to change it from Tears of the Kingdom by adding the underground and
Sky.
sky elements.
Yep.
But for the next one, I think you really gotta have a new Hyrule setting. Completely new map, completely new characters. Just something sort of a bit of a fresh start after the Breath and Tears duology.
Definitely. Yeah, I do agree. But do you think that I mean there's been a lot of saying that, I mean they wanted to see us a bit more I think concise. I mean smaller kind of Hyrule. I mean, do you think that that would be an option that they can consider to make it, because Hyrule in Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, especially Tears of the Kingdom, is huge. I mean, you're talking about a world that I think that you would need to be traveling for like a couple of hours to reach the end of the corner kind of stuff. So I mean, in a way, it's huge. It's huge, and then it's while I disagree with a lot of those content, even when Breath of the Wild came out that it was empty, I definitely disagree with that. But it definitely is a huge world. So do you? I mean, because do you want to see the world a bit more small? I mean, Majora's Mask did that with yeah.
I think it's possible. Like, I mean, I think one thing Breath of the Wild did very well, as a person who doesn't play as many open world games, is it made that genre very accessible. Like, the game is very big, but at the same time, it makes its template where it says, okay, here, do the introduction, and hey, if you don't want to do everything, here are 4 places on the map
Yep.
to go, and you can go fight Ganon.
Correct. Correct.
And that really kind of helps focus you as a player and gives you a sense of direction. So I actually didn't mind that Breath of the Wild was so big. Um, like what I found was I just tried to go to those 4 places, the 4 temples, and if anything interested me on the way,
Which
I just tried to do it.
yeah.
It's a very ingenious and simple way
Agree.
of just piquing the player's curiosity
without
them to do things
without telling them,
without.
without really telling them to do it, right? So it's I think that is,
Like,
that's
a lot of people complain some open world games they have like what they call
checklist.
checklisting,
Yep,
where they
yep,
give you
exactly.
like a million things to do on a big menu and
Hmm.
it feels overwhelming. But
Correct, correct,
Zelda kind of just naturally gets you to do that
correct.
by just telling you to do a few things and then trusting that the world is interesting enough
Divert
get
you,
you
yeah.
excited.
Yeah, exactly, you're right. So yeah, I think, yeah, just from my kind of perspective, right? I'm having this kind of thought that maybe a smaller world would be nice, but then I love whatever happened with Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. I think that idea of exploration is what makes Zelda fun for me, even way back then. I know uh, Zelda had been through that linear route for some time, and it was really successful even at the critic kind of level, right? But then again, I think nowadays it's all about the reception, and having a bit of a smaller kind of world would be a disadvantage to the timeline of uh, developing that game. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking
Mm.
nonsense here, but from the context of developing a big game like Zelda's Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, right? It feels that you can get a lot of out of it because you made it like huge. I mean,
Mm.
as the players, right? One of the things that I love about Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is that I'm able to get into the game without thinking where to go, what to do, kind of stuff. It was,
Yeah,
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 and then those kind of thing. I'm having a bit of trouble doing that for the previous kind of Zelda. I was trying to replay Wind Waker recently, and they had those limitation where I was like, if I'm not after like a week stopping playing that game, then I wanted to resume. I was like, where should I go? I mean, those kind of uh, I don't know whether that's a limitation, but then those kind of things happen. But when I pick up games like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, I can just do whatever, and then it does not restrict me to that kind of context that I need to remember what I did like a couple of weeks ago, right? So I mean that is,
mm,
yeah, that's what I really love about the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, Anuma did say it out pretty well. Not we at the point where it's odd that we want to go back to how it was before because it's what was very limited, right? And then yeah, and that kind of view made me believe that it has to be as big or even bigger than whatever that they deliver with Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild.
I don't necessarily think it has to be bigger.
Mm,
Like, I think it has to be open world. Like, that's the main thing. I don't
mm,
think you can go back to that more linear
mm,
puzzle design Zelda, at least not right now. Like, I think ultimately you can have a smaller open world. I don't think that's too much of an issue. In fact, it could be quite interesting, a smaller open world, but maybe a bit more dense in terms of,
uh, the content.
more people to talk to. You could
Mm,
have like more towns and
mm,
villages where you can like do things with the NPCs, which is kind of what they did with Majora's Mask. So they could make it akin to that.
yep, definitely,
Uh,
definitely.
so there is a lot they can potentially do. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a bigger map, but
Mm,
I think the main thing is it just has to give a different experience. Like, I don't agree with the criticism that Tears of the Kingdom was too much like Breath of the Wild, but I think that it was pushing it a little bit, and I think most people want to move on to kind of a new Zelda
yep,
experience in a
understand.
new setting. So I think
Yeah.
now next one's like I think it's time they gotta move on to like just something kind of new and fresh, I suppose. Yeah,
What if the next Zelda is not within Hyrule anymore? I mean, would that be something that uh,
I
interests?
don't think that I don't think that's really an issue. I mean, we've
Mm.
had Zelda games that don't take place in Hyrule.
Yep, definitely.
Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, and Skyward Sword are all very beloved, and none of them really take place in Hyrule.
Correct.
So
Yep. Yep.
they can definitely do something interesting and something out there. it's really just depends on
Agree,
what they
betul,
want.
betul. I definitely can see that. Just wanted to just roll back a bit on the timeline of Switch 2, and then of course kita dah cakap tadi. The idea is that a launch, a new console launch should be supported by a very high profile kind of game that would help that
Mm.
launch, right? So I and then you were saying that we might not see the new Zelda maybe at least 2-3 years after the release of the console. But I am gonna have to I'm I'm gonna have this to agree with you, disagree a bit on you on this, because I feel that they have, well, this is from my assumption. Well, I feel that they have started to work on with the new Zelda 2 years ago. I mean, back 2 years ago, because I think it applies
Mm.
to the context of what they did with Tears of the Kingdom, where it was supposed to get released back in 2022, something like that. But then they did like a 1 year kind of what do you call that? Uh, uh, Polishing the game, right?
Mm.
So I haven't guessed that what actually happened was that the team that's managing the polishing part is a smaller team, while the bigger team, they had moved on to the next project, which I think started back in even to 2022. And then so they,
Mm.
with that, they have already gained that 2 years time for the dev cycle, right? So 2022, 2023, now 2024. And with the news that Switch is Switch 2 is going to be next year or whatever, something like that. That could be like the third year of the development cycle that happens, and then I'm expecting within the fourth year you'll be able to see a new Zelda game. But of course, that's just an assumption that I had, and with a couple of rumors that came that they are doing a remake of Ocarina of Time. I don't know. Could be one of the things that they kind of uh, push for the Switch launch kind of thing, but I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think like a remake or a spin-off, like a Hyrule Warriors sort of things,
Mm.
are pretty possible for closer to launch. Like, even between Breath and Tears of the Kingdom, we had the Link's Awakening
Yep.
remake. So I could see them doing something like that, something that wouldn't require as much work. That is a good point. Like, I know that a lot of dev teams, they're pretty much the minute they're done with one project, it's right into the next
Mm.
project. So I have no doubt they're probably working on a new Zelda right now, and they have been for some time. I don't think it would make launch. That's just the
Yeah,
assumption.
I do agree. I think it won't be during the launch kind of, but I don't think it's gonna be that far ahead after the launch. So again, this is with the context of if it's a new Zelda game, it's a purely new Zelda
Mm.
game. But
Yeah.
I was saying as well, there was a lot of rumors going around that talks about where the Ocarina of Time is going through that route of remake, remaster. No, I don't think it's a remaster because we had that with 3DS. I think they were going through with that route of remaking that game. Ocarina, I mean, Ocarina had always been that one of the biggest fave in the list, right? So
Mm.
would that be something that you would be interested to see when they're gonna be do full overhaul of Ocarina of Time remake? I mean, you expect to see like 8 dungeons, and then I mean, with how Ocarina of Time went through the puzzle kind of route for all of the dungeon, definitely uh, something that they can consider. What do you think about that?
Be up for it. I mean, I think Ocarina of Time is one of those things where it's a very important game, and I think a lot of people want to play it, but it might be harder for, I hate to say this, but harder for younger gamers to maybe get
Agree.
into it since it's such an older title. I mean, Ocarina of Time, I think, came out the year I was born, so,
You
it's a
know,
pretty old one.
I know, you're right. I mean, I think one of the reason why Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom managed to get all the sales is because they are pretty open to the newcomer, new.
Mm.
I mean, you've seen how the TikTok users has been really utilizing that Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild kind of gameplay to show the freedom of it kind of stuff, and then that kind of thing really promotes that game, even at those. I mean, as a fan base, right? I mean, you are gonna be very nostalgic about all those previous Zelda, but then whatever happened with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, it break those barriers. So a lot of newcomers, new players was able to enjoy it because it's more uh, uh how to say, more comparable within the time zone that we are in
Yes,
right now.
yes.
So that's the thing. So you're right. I'm gonna be having a lot of fun if they're gonna do that Ocarina of Time full remake kind of stuff. You're gonna get a lot of those new graphical kind of improvement. Maybe like whatever they did with Resident Evil 4. I mean, you've
Yeah, yeah.
something like that.
I definitely think
Mm,
that that's part of it. Like, there is this big trend of, people want to play older games getting remade, sort of updating their
mm.
gameplay for modern standards, and you know, Persona 3,
Oh yeah.
Resident Evil, you know, I guess Final Fantasy 7 isn't really a remake, but it's sort of a reimagining of
Mm,
it. And I think a lot of that is this idea that people who kind of were too young to play them as kids. They want to go back, but they don't want to put up with the sort of more archaic gameplay. So I think that, and of course, it's just easy money for these guys.
yeah,
All the
exactly.
nostalgia behind these. So
Yeah, you're right.
I think that's sort of what's fueling it.
Yeah, that.
Um,
Sorry, go ahead.
it's interesting because to be honest, while I had played Zelda games before Breath of the Wild,
Mm,
Breath of the Wild's the one that really got me into the series a lot. For the same reason, really. The older Zelda games, they have this very, I
template.
like to call it "where do I go" gameplay.
Yeah,
So it's
you're
like,
right. You're right. Yeah. Yeah.
so it's not
That
the only one. Metroid has this problem too. But like,
correct.
you go somewhere, you talk to a guy, and it's like, "Where do I
Where-
go?" And then it's
yeah.
like you wander around the town till you find just that one specific guy or one specific weapon, and then again, it's like, where do I go? And it's
No,
in the end,
that was the thing that I was talking about. In a way, right? Uh, all those previous Zelda game, while they are really good, really fun, and I've been a fan since the beginning of Zelda, and I love those. But then again, when I was trying to replay the game nowadays, it just feels off. I mean, I'm not putting down Twilight Princess or
no.
whatever, but then that was the issue that I had with Twilight Princess. It took so much time to just go through that gameplay session, and I was like, oh no, what's? I mean, I was having a I was trying to be very positive, but then I just can't handle it.
No,
Since
I
yeah,
get you. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're fantastic games, and of course, I understand that this is what Zelda fans like about the games. They like the mystery, the
mm,
exploration, and sort of figuring out the puzzle of
mm,
each areas, both in the dungeons and outside the dungeons. But, this is going to sound very cynical, but unfortunately, a lot of people, they want it a bit more simple than that. They want the idea that, they have multiple ways of tackling a problem. And I think that's ultimately what led to Breath of the
mm,
Wild, to try and keep that puzzle aspect, but do it in a way where there's so many different ways of solving each puzzle. They're a lot more bite-sized with like the shrines and everything. I know people don't like the shrines, but I see
I know.
why they exist. They're small, they're fast, and you can get back. And if you're not into them, you can get back to the exploration and
Correct.
the sword fighting and the horse riding, and
Correct.
kind of it's just a more accessible game, and that's what brought people in, I
I
think.
agree. I'm totally on you on that because that's what I found. And this is from a context of person have been with Zelda for so long. I love Zelda. I love Ocarina of Time, and well, just a bit give you a bit of context on that. I'm a big fan of Majora's Mask, and for
Hmm.
all this while, I thought Majora's Mask is the first on my list because it gave me what I really want in the game. So that feeling of being very flexible with what I wanted to do, kind of stuff, and then when you the timeline kind of stuff. Of course, the story part is a different kind of yeah, segment. But then when Tears of the Kingdom came out, I it basically overtook Majora's Mask on my list because I feel that I can play the game whenever I want to play the game. I don't have to be burdened with what I need to do, kind of stuff. I'm really open with my options in the game. So that was one of the reason I thought Tears of the Kingdom really nailed it in terms of that freedom. And I believe, as I mentioned, it is what the current generation wants it to be. So that's why one of the reason the sales was so well is because it managed to approach those new gamers, the young gamers kind of stuff. And yeah, that just really yeah. All right. Okay. We've been talking a lot about that. But what about what do you expect to see in terms of the graphical performance? Of course, we are talking about Switch 2 here, but then do you want to see a more realistic kind of Zelda? Because Zelda has
No.
always been playing around with that art style, right? I mean, you've seen this art style. It has been,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you want to see another Twilight Princess kind of art style here, or maybe a Wind Waker ones?
I wouldn't be against it. Like, I think I do like Twilight Princess's art style. It's very Lord 2000s Lord of the Rings. It definitely took a
Brownish.
bit of inspiration from those movies, but I'm not against it. I'm not against having a darker Zelda game. I wouldn't want it like hyper realistic, sort of
Oh, all right.
you know,
Last
akin
of
to
Us.
like I don't know, a Last of Us,
Yeah,
Ghost of
yeah,
Tsushima
yeah,
sort
yeah,
of
yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think something akin to Twilight Princess though is fine. It still has that sort of fantasy feel, which I think sort of makes the Zelda games unique. It's they are kind of the fantasy the fantasy game other than Final Fantasy, I guess. But
I'm gonna ask
so
you.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm gonna ask you. So what about what if they go through? They went through with the Wind Waker route. So it's you gotta see those. I'm not say childish, but then definitely something more comical or maybe a bit more on the cute side of it. Do you think that would work?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think Zelda's very versatile as a franchise. I mean, I kind of appreciate Wind Waker opening that door and saying we can have this big grand Zelda game, and we can have it in a more cartoony style,
Mm.
and it still works. I think Zelda's one of those franchises where you can kind of throw a lot of aesthetics at it, and it'll mostly turn out okay. I mean, yeah.
No,
What do you think?
I definitely agree with you on this as well. I think I want Nintendo to surprise me. That's the thing. I want them to surprise me. So I'm gonna leave them
Yeah,
for them to,
yeah.
yeah.
I think this is probably going too far for some fans, but I've
Mm.
always wondered, what if they did a futuristic Zelda game?
Ah,
Like,
yeah,
I'm
Cyberpunk.
thinking like not like Cyberpunk. I'm
Oh,
thinking
okay.
more
Uh,
something like Guilty Gear, where it's like there's
okay.
swords and magic, but it all looks kind of high tech. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
they're
yeah.
sort of already doing that. I mean, Breath of the Wild has a motorcycle in
Correct,
it. It's like
correct.
there's no way around that. That's a motorcycle,
You're right.
and mechs. They
Yep.
have mechs in the game,
The
so
bots,
it's
yeah.
like I feel like so I can see them just taking those ideas and like, what if you just made kind of a whole game out of that? Like, I don't think they'll do it, but if they did, it's like I'd respect that. I'd have a lot of
Nice.
respect for that.
Well, talking about that, I had a couple sessions before. I was talking to one of game dev that I know. We're having this session. I think you can check it out in our previous episode. So we were talking about what if Zelda is gonna take that cyberpunk kind of route, and we thought there was a lot of idea that they can explore, and then that was something that again I know chances for that to happen is gonna be very very low, but then I'm gonna be very very interested to see if they can modernize a lot of them. Not to say that Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild are not that high tech, because it is. I mean, you can see a lot of those, both of those game apply those uh, technological kind of advancement that you don't see in previous Zelda, but then maybe yeah, those environment that would reflect a futuristic kind of, yeah, route. Yeah, definitely something that's good. Yeah, for me personally, again, going back to the idea that I don't mind, I'm leaving this for Nintendo for them to surprise me, because so far I am I'm not critical of the way that they presented the game to me. I mean, I've been surprised, and of course, there's one better than the other. But then again, I've never been saying, "Oh, this is like the worst kind of." So I've been happy with whatever they deliver so far, and I think they will do that again for the next version. So yeah, yeah. What about? Well, we've been dodging this a lot, so I'm just want to start to talk about what about the gameplay part. What do you expect to see from the gameplay uh, part of being in the next Zelda? Do you want to see more dungeons? Do you want to? I mean, of course, that's one of the biggest criticism for both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, that they are lacking of that dungeon kind of route. But I believe there was a pretty solid reason for them to allow those, because the open world, the non-linear kind of route for that, right? But then, do you expect to see more dungeons? I mean, what kind of gameplay do you want them to enhance the battle kind of? Uh, yeah.
It's hard. I'm a bit mixed about it, I
Mm,
guess. So for one hand, I do think they should try and do more difference than the Breath of the Wild and Tears. Like for one, Breath of the Wild and Tears, they have very similar templates in terms of you have that big, little bit boring introduction area,
mm,
and then they sort of let you fly and do what you want. They give you the 4 places you can
mm,
potentially go if you want the more linear
mm,
experience. Um, so I feel like that could do with some changing up. Like at the very least, you can shorten the introduction area. I
mm,
think both times people said it was kind of boring, and yeah,
mm.
it was. I won't
Okay.
lie. Honestly, I know quite a few people who didn't get very far in the game because they were bored through the introduction area.
Right.
But
Okay.
with the dungeons themselves, though, like you said, I understand why they took them out and or why they shortened them because I actually think Tears' dungeons weren't that bad. Like,
Agree.
there was a bigger emphasis with the. I think the boss battles especially were very cool,
Definitely.
um, but like I said, I understand why they did it. Like they wanted to shorten that puzzle aspect. The dungeons are the big puzzle areas, and they wanted that aspect, kind of made easier, made more accessible. So they split it between 4 dungeons and all of the shrines.
Shrines. Yep.
But I also understand that dungeons are a good place for kind of showing off the world building. They can show off a lot of the graphical design,
Mm.
and to that extent, I think they are very important. So ultimately, I'll admit, I just don't know.
It's,
I'm trusting Nintendo to try and balance it out to an extent. Maybe more dungeons, but maybe keeping to that more accessible gameplay from Tears of Breath of the Wild, or alternatively, you could stick to 4 of them, but maybe try and flesh them out more. Um, I'm not sure they can go right back to the style of we're gonna give you a weapon at the start of the
ah ha
dungeon and
ha
you have
ha.
to
Yeah.
use it for every room,
Mm.
but I don't know, like
Open for them to
I just
surprise
think
you.
this is yeah, it's really just one of those things where it's like you just gotta trust Nintendo
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
try and do the most out of it because I don't know, it's one of those things where it's just yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
new design and the old design they don't entirely go together for better or worse, so
Yep.
you kind of got to just figure out what bits to take out of both of them, I guess.
Yep. Yep. Well, what about the battle mechanics? I mean, you do expect to see Link having more battle skill set. I'm not saying that whatever happened with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom was a simplest form of battle, but then, uh, do you want to see a bit more Souls-like kind of route for Link to explore, where each battle is going to be very technical? I mean, you need to be dodging and then more precise in your timing kind of stuff.
Uh, I doubt Nintendo will go too far just because, Souls games, of course, are notoriously very challenging, and,
Mm,
Nintendo never wants to make a game that's too challenging. So, but I think that, they already have a lot of Tears of the Kingdom requires like parrying and
mm,
dodging and, timed attacks. So I could see them going more in that direction to sort of,
mm,
sort of bring a bit more to it. I also think they'll definitely have at least a couple of new weapons. Each new Zelda game they want to bring in that a couple of special weapons, so
mm.
that'll probably be a thing as well. So
Do,
it'll
yeah.
it'll probably be interesting.
So, do you miss Hookshot? Do you miss Hookshot? Do you want to see Hookshot?
I wouldn't mind seeing Hookshot come back. Actually, I think that could be cool. You could like pull weapons maybe out of characters' hands and then use
Yeah.
them yourself. Like if you still have the different weapons you
I
can
think
use.
that's one of those tools that have been missing out from the for the last two iteration, right? So, and then yeah, well, of course, hookshot has always been that route to levitate your height kind of stuff. But then now you do have those climbing kind of skills that has been very useful. But yeah, I know hookshot. Uh, I think there is a lot of way that Nintendo can explore this. I think the hookshot kind of thing definitely is something that would be lovely if they can add into the tool list kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay. One of the things that I'm not say I'm not a big fan of it, but I do understand from a Nintendo kind of perspective on storytelling. So Nintendo has
Mhm.
always been uh, putting gameplay above everything, where the story part is just gonna be something that they shoe in once they've done with the gameplay and the world building and stuff. So what do you think? Do you expect Nintendo to yeah deliver more on story moving forward? I mean, Skyward Sword
Um,
did pretty well, but then yeah.
it's a bit frustrating because I like story in games. I wouldn't play RPGs if I didn't. And I remember one thing that people said about Tears of the Kingdom is that they were hoping for more story or darker story, and we didn't really get that, to be honest. But I do think though that um, I think it would be good to try and include more story in general. I don't think like it needs to be super in depth, but I feel like you know the way they've been doing it now, where you can find like little cut scenes around the world.
Mm.
I feel like you should. I think it would actually benefit from a more linear storyline to an extent. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not saying you should just be like go here, go there, but if you have a main quest, that can be a bit more involved. I think a nice thing would be maybe if Zelda is with you for more of the game, because let's be honest with ourselves, a big reason why Breath and Tears got popular is everyone loves this version of Zelda.
Correct.
Um,
Yep. Uh,
whether it's just because they find her
yeah.
cute or just because they think she's more developed and as a character, and also the fact that these are the first ones with voice acting as well. That
Yep.
gives a lot more
Weightage.
liveliness,
Mm.
liveliness to somewhat of the characters.
Mm.
So it's a weird thing where Breath of the Wild doesn't have a lot of story, but the story and the characters are strangely some of the most popular aspects of the game.
Mm.
So, I feel like Nintendo should try and bring more of that in, bring in more story, bring in kind of more cutesy scenes between Link and
Ha
Zelda
ha
because
ha.
people really like that
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. Definitely.
But at the same time, who knows if they will? Can only
Yeah.
just hope.
Correct. I think going back to that kind of understanding, I think both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom had that issue with the linearity of the storyline, because there will be a scenario. It was a bit easier on Breath of the Wild compared to Tears of the Kingdom, but then there will be a scenario where
Mhm.
you would somehow uh, encounter those story that is not based on the correct order kind of stuff. I mean, with the tiers kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
And then of it got a bit more I think mundane when we're talking about whenever once you defeated one of those dungeon, they'll just use the same template to just tell the
Yeah.
story. But then again, it works because of the context of being non-linear, right? So because you'll be able to
Yeah.
but then again, there is a bit of I think if you realize from whatever that you played with Tears of the Kingdom, there is this content of story that is pretty interesting, but then it was I think scattered out because of the way that the game is being maneuvered there, right? But yeah, I personally, from my kind of uh, opinion, right, story would be the least down from my. I mean, if a game that is having an amazing story but with a bad gameplay, I would reject those from my list rather than
Yeah.
a game that will have an amazing gameplay with a bad story. I don't mind that, because I, I'm on that ship where stories are for movies or books, games are for gameplay kind of stuff. But then again, it will always be a bonus kind of thing if Nintendo will be able to deliver in terms of the story. I think uh, recently we can see a couple of Nintendo products that manage to deliver on a story kind of route a bit better than the usual kind of stuff. I mean, usually you'll see saving the princess, a pretty straightforward kind of thing. You don't expect them to uh, uh, delve a lot into the story plot kind of stuff. They just want to make sure that you can enjoy the game. But I think it was uh, what was it? I forgot. Yeah,
Um,
sorry, Fire Emblem kind of series. They tried to play a lot with the story kind of. Yep.
yeah, I guess for me it depends a lot on the specific game.
Mm.
Like a Fire Emblem game or Xenoblade game
Oh,
not having a good story is a big
bummer.
turnoff
Mm.
because those sort of games are advertised as having good stories and having
Mm.
good funny characters.
Mm.
And I do think with Nintendo games, even if they don't have, I guess, in-depth stories, I do think a lot of them are very unique in terms of world and characters, and they do a
Lore.
good job of trying to kind of just giving you the experience of hanging out with these characters and just
Yep. Yep.
giving a lot to them. So Kirby does that a lot,
Mm.
Pikmin does that a lot. Some of the Mario games do that quite a bit, and some of them outright just do have good stories, like
Yeah.
Super Paper Mario. That is
Oh,
that
yep.
is a really fun story.
Mm.
Um, so I think that it's not really like it can't do a good story. They can't do good stories. Like they don't have to, but I think that they would benefit from it.
Bonus. Yep. It's gonna
Like
be a bonus point. Yep. If they're able to deliver on that part as well right here.
yeah, and I think that it's especially something that could draw more people in. Like I said, people really fell in love with a lot of Breath of the Wild's characters, despite their lack of screen time.
Mm.
Not just Link and Zelda, but everyone
It's
loves
a
Link and
champion.
Zelda.
The
The
champion. Mm.
champions, Prince Sidon, loads of fangirls
Correct.
over
Oh
Prince
yeah, I know. I
Sidon.
know. Tell me about that. Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
So it's like, I feel like that, and even in the older games, Midna, Skull Kid, Zant, they're all very beloved characters, even though there's not much story. So I feel like having a bit more story and getting them a bit more involved beyond just kind of guides or bosses to sit at the end of a dungeon,
Correct.
people would enjoy seeing more of them. And in some ways, that's all a story needs to be. Just let you hang out with a bunch of weird characters.
Yeah, I think I can agree on that kind of context. But yeah, just to give you a bit of perspective on this as well. So we're gonna get a new Zelda movie soon. I don't know. That is definitely something that has been a very big surprise, at least for me, because after they did
Yeah.
Mario, I didn't expect they would be jumping straight to Zelda. But then that's what Miyamoto is onto. Miyamoto-san is onto right now, and that is definitely a part where the story would play the biggest kind of uh, points, right? So yeah, it's interesting to see how they're gonna deliver on that. Knowing Nintendo, well, not to say I enjoyed the Mario movie pretty well. I would give it a
I liked it.
yeah, pretty solid.
I
Mm.
reviewed it for Gamer Braves. I saw
Ah,
the opening preview, and
and yeah,
it was good, but yeah, the lack of story is a problem to an extent. Like, I feel people who say, "Oh, it's Mario, the story doesn't matter," I would reply, "It's a movie. The story does matter. It
exactly, yeah,
doesn't
exactly. If it's
make a
you're right,
movie, then you need to have more
exactly.
plot."
I mean,
And
if you're
I
talking about
and
games, sorry, if you're talking about games, then that makes sense that the gameplay must be the primary kind of role there, right? But then if you're talking about movie, then definitely movie would be the story is definitely going to be something that is the point of the movie, right? So yeah, something like
yeah, and the thing is, no one's asking for like an in-depth
that.
psychological drama, but
The
there just needs
layers,
to be
yeah.
a bit more like.
Mm.
And the thing I find interesting is the Mario movie. It has a lot of good moments for story, but just needed to put a bit more in it. Like, Mario, revealing Princess Peach does not come from the Mushroom Kingdom is really interesting. Please talk about it more. Mario and Donkey Kong getting into this kind of rivalry. That's really cool. Can we see more of that? And the big one, of course, is
Bowser.
Mario and Bowser are
Yeah,
arch enemies. They
yeah.
don't meet until the end of the
Correct,
movie, and they
correct.
barely talk to each other.
exactly.
Mario and Luigi barely talk to each other, and they're the Mario brothers.
Brothers. Yep, exactly. Now you're right. I mean, again, yeah, with that context of they making a Zelda game, so I'm really hoping it's gonna be. Again, I have very low expectation on this, but then yeah, I'll hope they'll be able to deliver something.
Um,
Yeah,
I mean, I hope for the best. I
yeah,
think there is. I think Zelda has more potential for a good story than Mario does, just because it has so much more world building.
correct. Yep.
I'm hoping they don't adapt any game. Just make it a new Zelda story in the timeline with a new Link and Zelda. I feel like if they try and stick it on any game, it's just gonna end badly because
They're
of
gonna
how
drive the
the
fans
adaptation
crazy. Yep,
works.
exactly.
Yes, and finally, I know it's a joke, but seriously, since you are working with Sony, please do not cast Tom Holland as Link. He's a great actor, but no, not as Link.
One of the first few episodes from my podcast back then was talking about this one. I mean, that was like a year ago, something like that. We had a bunch of panel that were talking what if Zelda gonna be made into a movie, and then Tom Holland name popped out like more than once in the conversation. But yeah, you're right. Let's put him to a bit of rest on that role. But yeah, let's see how it goes with the movie. But of course, going back to the point of discussion, right? So we've been talking a lot about 3D Zelda. Yeah, that is definitely gonna be our mainline focus on this. But then, what about 2D Zelda? Do you see a future on this aside from the game being on the remake kind of route where they'll be remaking this, or you want to see a new Zelda 2D Zelda uh, that can well fill the gap between the big ones, the 3D ones. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's hard to say because we haven't really gotten a new 2D Zelda in a long time. I think
Link Between
the
Worlds. Huh?
last one was, I guess, what was it? Twilight? No, not Twilight.
Link Between Worlds.
Triforce Heroes or
Well,
whatever it is.
oh yeah, maybe yeah. You're right. I think post after
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's been quite a while, and so I could see them doing more remakes. Like they could remake Link to the Past or Minish Cap or something like that. But it's a bit hard to say just because we haven't really seen them do it in a while. So it's always a bit, wary or concerning because just you haven't seen it done in so long. With that being said, I don't think it's completely off the table. I mean, Nintendo they do go back to their old 2D gameplay every once in a while. I mean, with Mario we got Odyssey, and then last year we got
Wonder.
Mario Wonder,
Mm.
and even with like Metroid, which is a much smaller series than either of them. You know,
Got a
we had
dread.
Metroid Dread, which was like the first 2D game in like 2 decades, and Metroid Prime 4 is something that will happen apparently. So that'll be in 3D. So who knows? It could just be that they're just waiting, and one day we'll see another 2D Zelda. But it's
Yeah.
hard to say.
Well, do you think that there's a big future for 2D Zelda? Because if you recall, not recent. I think 2 years ago we had Tunic. That was an amazing, at least from my
Hmm.
opinion. I had a lot of fun playing that game because it really I think you can see a lot of elements of Zelda into that, and then the way that they push that limit to the next level. Because usually for 2D Zelda, right, I think the battle kind of mechanics is pretty straightforward. You'll be like just slashing your sword and then dodging left and right kind of stuff, trying to find it. But then Tunic did a bit of uh, uh, enhancement on that, where you will be having those skill set within those moves that you do, and then eventually it feels a bit more. You can feel there is a slot for some creativity and some skill that you can apply to the battle compared to whatever that you had with a lot of other 2D Zelda games, right? So do you see Nintendo pulling that off as well?
I think that's possible. Like that, it really depends on if when or if we get another 2D game. But all the 2D games have done different things with different abilities. So I think it's safe to say they'll try that again. I mean,
You
Link.
you have played Spirit Tracks, right? I mean, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
yeah. From your experience, does those kind of 2D can deliver what the market wants right now? What do you think?
Uh, I think that it's a Zelda game. It will
Mm.
sell well because it's a
The
Zelda
brand.
game. But
Okay, okay, yep.
um, it probably won't do as well as like their big 3D games,
Mm.
but like I said, Nintendo, one thing I like about them is they are one of the companies that are willing to do what I call double A games. So,
Okay.
they're smaller, lower budget titles, still with a bit more budget than like an indie title,
Mm.
but not as much as their big blockbuster AAA titles. And they've been doing them all throughout the Switch's life, and including with a bunch of franchises no one would think thought they see again. This year we got, what was it? Another Code? Like, who
Yep,
thought
yep.
Another Code was gonna
Correct.
come back?
Yep, yep.
So, I can see them doing something similar with Zelda, and it will probably sell decently enough to warrant them making another one in a few years. And I think that's pretty fun. By the way, Spirit Tracks also has probably the best relationship between Link and Zelda.
Zelda,
They're
yeah, I
like
agree.
in
Yeah,
that
yeah.
game.
I'm definitely gonna be taking one of the session with you again on that because I'm finding it a bit hard to find those players who have played the game before. So maybe we'll set up session just to do a deep dive review on that if you don't mind. So because
I'm sure.
I thought
Just keep in
it
mind,
was
I haven't played it in 10 years
no,
or
no
so
worries. We
now, but
can you can do a
uh,
quick recap through YouTube. No, nowadays you will be able to do that. But then again, from a 2D kind of perspective, I think there will still be some future for 2D games, uh, that Nintendo can explore, especially to fill up the gaps between the big ones, right? So you will want to see those 2D games.
mm,
Yeah, I think recently we had that Oracle for Ages, Oracle season popping in the Nintendo subscription kind of route, right? And I thought those two games was pretty amazing. Especially it. I think those two games really differentiate with each other in the context of one would be a bit more uh, battle kind of route, so that the challenge can be a bit more action kind of route. The other one would be the puzzle one. So if they can do a remake for that, or maybe because there had been a rumor that it was supposed to be a three slot of game with that Oracle of Ages season kind of route. Maybe there'll be another third
mm,
one they'll be popping out. And with the idea of that as well, I feel that this is going to be some opportunity that Nintendo can pass it down to their uh, second party kind of dev team, right?
yeah, yeah.
Where we seen Grezzo did with the remake of Majora's Mask kind of stuff, right? And I think that gives us a bit of both advantage where the main team will be able to still focus on the 3D one and will be still be able to get those 2D Zelda games from a pretty amazing team as well from the B team kind of route, right? So yeah, I do see that as a big thing that they can fill up between the gaps. Cool.
Hmm.
All right, I think we are done with the idea of whether what we want to see in the next Zelda game. Do you have any uh, yeah last words that we can
Um, I guess last words. I guess my final thing is I think that regardless of whatever Zelda does, it's in a good place.
right?
It's been in some of the best place it's ever been. I think
Agree.
it's gotten two highly successful games. It's got its movie coming along, and I feel like Nintendo. Obviously, they're making a new one, but in terms of spin-offs, in terms of remakes or smaller 2D games, I think it's all possible to some extent. Like, I don't think anything is completely off the table with this series, and
Mm.
I feel like it's a bit of a matter of time before Nintendo wants to revisit them. Like, I definitely think that I'm not sure when the new Zelda game, like new Zelda game, will come, but Nintendo's definitely going to release something in the meantime. Like, the obvious thing is finally porting the remasters of Wind Waker and
Oh
Twilight
yeah.
Princess
All right.
and Switch
Correct.
2, but
Correct.
I can also see like a remake, more ports of other things, or another spin-off. Like, I wouldn't say no to another Hyrule Warriors or something like that. So we'll see.
I was a bit surprised that they were going with the Donkey Kong route for the Nintendo Land, right? So But yeah, I guess maybe because Donkey Kong is pretty well
It's
popular.
It's because it's connected to Mario. It's probably just easier
Yeah,
for them
yeah,
to tack
maybe
it
that.
on.
Yeah, yeah. I was expecting them to go with Zelda because of the movie kind of thing. But yeah, and I've been to the theme park before, and that was one of my, I think, most precious experience with Nintendo because it was so amazing on the details that they were able to
Yes,
deliver
yes.
on that park, because it was you would definitely feel that you were in a Mario game
I've
because
been there before in Osaka, right?
yeah, I went the Osaka one as well, so it was wow, just wow for me. I mean,
Yeah, it's
uh,
lovely. It was absolutely amazing.
exactly. So if they are gonna do a Zelda version of that, gonna be so excited. I'm definitely gonna be one of the first one to visit those if it's gonna be a Zelda one. So yeah, but yeah, I think really thank you for you that you managed to just give a lot of good views on this. Then it's been very a pleasure to
No,
be able to talk with you on this, Alex. So
no
yeah,
worries. Thank you for having me on. It's been really cool to talk to you as well. I mean, I don't have a lot of people I can talk to about this sort of stuff in depth, so it's a lot of fun.
exactly. So yeah, we are a big Nintendo fan. Of course, Zelda is one of the main series that we had experience with a lot of fun. I mean, you've been with Zelda game as well, right? So it's always nice to see a new fan around, of course. And yeah, thank you very much, Alex. I'll
No
be
worries.
definitely setting up for another call with you on Spirit Track if it is possible. Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Thank
Anytime.
you very much.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Reese checking out. Catch up
All
with you
right.
guys later. Bye
All
bye.
right.
Selamat.
Thank you. See ya.
All
All right.
right. Bye
Bye.
bye.